Story: The Blackthorn Covenant. They say there are places the earth itself does not want us to tread, valleys where the air is too still, where the trees grow in strange patterns as if they are leaning together to whisper, where time feels slow and wrong. Around here we call that place Blackthorn Vale. No map marks it anymore. It sits somewhere beyond the ridges, out where the dirt roads taper into deer paths, and the deer paths fade into nothing. But the old folks know it's there. They won't talk about it at night, and they won't answer if you ask for directions. And if you do press them, they'll shake their heads and mutter the same thing. The Covenant still waits. The story begins in the late 1800s, when a band of settlers split away from the nearest town. Nobody was surprised people split all the time, either for land or for faith. But these folks weren't building a new church, they were walking away from it. They called themselves Seekers of the Root. They said the Bible was a candle, but they wanted the sun. They believed the true voice of God had been buried long before Christ, and they were determined to find it. Led by a man named Nathaniel Vea, preacher with eyes like storm glass, they set up cabins in the vale. At first, they seemed harmless. Strange, but harmless. They worked their land, traded occasionally, but they worshipped in their own way. No hymns, no crosses, no churches. Instead, they met beneath a grove of blackthorn trees at the heart of the vale. That grove, that's where the stories start. Farmers on the outskirts began to lose cattle. Not just killed, laid out, drained, with symbols carved into their hides. Horses bolted at dusk, dogs wouldn't go near the tree line. Hunters swore they heard chanting, low and rhythmic, the words twisting in their ears like water over stones. One of them, a young man named Jacob Dyer, claimed he crept close enough to see, said lanterns swayed among the trees, though there was no wind. And the people Nathaniel and his followers stood in a circle, arms raised, whispering syllables that didn't belong in any tongue he knew. The sheriff laughed him off, said he'd been drinking. But when Jacob disappeared a week later, his boots left neatly side by side at the edge of the vale, the laughter stopped. They began to call them what they were: the Blackthorn Covenant. Whispers spread that they were worshipping something older than God, something that listened when they prayed beneath the thorns. Travelers avoided the vale. Even the bravest men wouldn't enter it after dark. But the Covenant didn't seem to mind. They wanted to be left alone, and for a while, they were. Then came the fire. One autumn night in 1893, flames lit the hills. Folks thought the whole vale was burning. The sky itself glowed red. But when men rode out to sea, they found the Blackthorn Grove charred yet standing. The cabins were gone. No bodies, no bones, no ash of human remains. Just the grove, smoldering, its branches reaching skyward like blackened claws. The Covenant had vanished. The county abandoned the land. Nobody wanted it. Nobody farmed it. The blackthorn trees remained, their bark cold to the touch even in summer, their thorns sharper than razors. Over the decades, hikers stumbled across the place and they always told the same story. The trees pressed in too close, the shadows pooled too thick, and somewhere faint but steady you could hear the rhythm of a chant waiting. Some swore they saw lanterns swaying between the trees. Others claimed pale figures stood in the circle, just at the edge of sight, watching. Teenagers dared each other to camp there, and most came back silent, shaken, unwilling to speak of what they'd heard. A few didn't come back at all. But the strangest part is this: the Blackthorn Grove never changes. The trees don't fall, don't grow, don't rot. They're as they were the night of the fire. It's as if the vale is frozen in time, waiting. That's the legend. That's the part my grandfather told me by firelight, his voice low, his eyes flicking to the tree line, even though we were miles from the vale. But what happened later? That's what convinces me the story isn't just smoke. A man named Daniel Price moved to our county in the late 1990s. He wasn't local, worked freelance photography, journalism. He loved finding hidden America, little forgotten corners to write about. You know the type. He heard the stories of Blackthorn Vale and decided it'd make a great piece. The locals warned him off. He laughed. Ghost stories, he said. He even stopped at the library, checked old newspapers, though there were precious few reports. The fire, yes. Some disappearances, yes. But the rest, just whispers. To him that made it perfect, a blend of fact and folklore. He packed his gear, camera, tent, tape recorder, and hiked out there one October afternoon. He never came back. All we have is what was found at his campsite, his backpack, his notes, his tape recorder. I've read the notes, I've heard the tape, that's why I'm telling you this. The first pages are what you'd expect: sketches of the vale, notes about the trees, the strange way no bird sang there. He mentioned how quiet it was. Not natural quiet, he wrote. More like everything is holding its breath. Then the tone shifts. The second night, he wrote, saw lights in the grove. Lanterns, at least 3. Thought maybe kids messing around. Listened, voices, low, couldn't make out words. The next page is just one line scrawled in darker ink. They stopped when I listened. On the tape you can hear his voice. First calm, narrating like he's recording field notes, then shaky, breathing hard. I walked closer tonight, he says. Lanterns, definitely. But they're wrong. The light isn't fire. It pulses like veins. I could see people or not people, shapes, standing in a circle. I thought I heard them say my name. There's a pause, then a laugh. No, that's stupid. Trick of the wind. But later, his tone changes again, whispering now. They're closer. Every time I blink, they're closer. The last words on the tape still haunt me. If I don't come back, don't let them take my voice. Then static. The search party found no sign of him. No body, no tracks. Just his recorder, lying in the grove. And so the story lives on. Some say the Blackthorn Covenant never died, that the fire was no ending, only a passage. They shed their flesh like snakes shed skin, stepped sideways into the shadow between worlds, and they're still there, waiting. Others say the vale itself is the cult now, that the trees remember the chants, the soil remembers the prayers, and the grove pulls wanderers into its circle to keep the ritual alive. I don't know. I only know what I heard on that tape, the panic in Daniel's voice, and I know that people still go missing. Every few years, some hiker, some teenager, some curious soul who thinks they're braver than the story, vanishes. Their names get added to the whispers, so if you ever find yourself in those hills, and you stumble across blackthorn trees rising twisted against the moon, don't go closer, don't listen for voices, don't follow the lantern light, because the Blackthorn Covenant isn't gone, and if you hear them call your name, you might not get the chance to answer.